Good afternoon. Welcome to Metro Hall. We're here to recognize survivors who have been impacted by gun violence. It's an issue that touches families all over our city, regardless of age, race, gender, socioeconomic status, or background of any kind. National Gun Violence Survivors Week started in 2019. It's held the first week in February because this week marks the approximate time every year that gun deaths in the United States surpass the number of gun deaths experienced by other countries in an entire calendar year. Think about that. The U.S. averages more than 3,000 gun deaths every month, and most other countries around the world experience fewer gun deaths in an entire year. The focus of National Gun Violence Survivors Week is on sharing gun violence survivors' stories in their own words and encouraging allies to amplify their voices in the hopes that together we can reduce the amount of gun violence plaguing our city and our country. For the folks joining me here today, we are all part of a group that no one wants to be part of. Each of us has experienced a shooting. Each of us has had a close call with death. And each of us is now working every day to try to reduce the amount of gun violence in our city. For me, this is my absolute number one goal as mayor. Next week will mark 1 year since an individual walked into my campaign office and fired 6 shots directly at me. I think about that incident every day, just as I'm sure every one of my friends up here today thinks about the gun violence that changed their life every day. We're the fortunate ones. We're still here. I'm sure, like most of my friends here today, like me, they might not know why or how they're still here, but we all know what we're going to do. And what each one of us here today is doing is working to make gun violence less of an impact, less of a plague on our city. We are doing everything possible to reduce the amount of gun violence in our city. Every time someone is injured or killed in a shooting, it just doesn't impact that one individual. It impacts friends, family, neighbors, neighborhoods, in fact, our entire city. Hundreds, if not thousands of people are traumatized every time there's another tragedy. So we're going to be taking, we have been and we are going to continue taking a lot of action. One piece of action that we're going to take is as a follow-up to an announcement that Chief Bill Royale and I had several weeks ago. We are going to host our city's first gun violence prevention community conversation on March 21st at 6 p.m. at the Muhammad Ali Center. We'll be talking a little bit more about that towards the end of our conversation today. So let me introduce some of the folks here with me today. First, Whitney Austin. Whitney survived a mass shooting in 2018. Since then, she has been an incredible advocate for other survivors. So I'd like for her to first come up and share her stories and some of what she is working on today. Whitney, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you to Mayor Greenberg and the team for the opportunity to discuss the all-important topic of gun violence survivors. And more importantly, I want to thank every one of the brave and resilient survivors that are standing here courageously with me on the stage today. In preparing my remarks, I took some time to think about the word survivor. You know, much is made of whether we should call ourselves victims or survivors, with many landing on the latter because of the positive connotation survivor holds. Others struggle using that term. They feel like imposters, claiming they shouldn't be able to use it because they weren't physically shot, even though they were clearly in harm's way or they lost a loved one to gun violence. I believe the reason we struggle so much with the language is because we are all still struggling with the reality of what gun violence did to us and all of the people that love us dearly. On September 6, 2018, I walked into my workplace in Cincinnati, Ohio, and was immediately hit with a barrage of bullets. Shocked, yet focused on my survival, I quickly realized that I had been shot and that I was likely experiencing a mass shooting. As I took gunfire, my brain went into overdrive. I had so many thoughts. How am I going to escape this? What if I don't escape this? What if I never get home to my precious children, and what will their life be like without me? What will my husband do? Why did I think I was immune to this? And then prayers, lots and lots of prayers. The reason that I stand in front of you today, and the reason that my husband and I do the work every day of Whitney Strong, is because I received the best in every way, shape, or form. The heroic police, the highly skilled and compassionate doctors and nurses, the bystander who appeared out of nowhere and applied a tourniquet to my left arm, and this doesn't even begin to cover it all. The city of Cincinnati, our family, our friends, strangers, my previous employer. I will never, ever be able to properly thank all of the people who wrapped their arms around me and my family. Paramount to it all, I get to stand here in front of you with a smile on my face that I survived 12 bullets, none of which hit any major organs or arteries. I am a miracle. I know that, and I will never, ever take it for granted. As I stand here, surrounded by my survivor friends, with different stories of gun violence, from community violence to suicide by firearm, and representing the hundreds of survivors who are watching us from afar today, I want you to know that we are all bonded forever because of our shared experience. It doesn't matter what led to a shooting, where the shooting occurred, where the bullets penetrated. When you find yourself in that moment, there is a shared humanity. All of us begging God or the universe or whatever you believe in to give us more time on this earth with those we love. It is because of this bond that I ask all of us today to think about what can be done to give survivors the very best, to give them exactly what Whitney Austin got in that moment. My friend Keonis from the Office of Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods will undoubtedly share more, but for any survivor listening today, please go to louisvilleky.gov/government/neighborhoods to gain access to a whole host of resources, from free mental health services that you are going to need to organizations working throughout the city to prevent homicide and suicide. I also invite you to join with Whitney Strong, my organization, as we fight to prevent gun violence across the state. Please know, and you may not feel like it now, but please know that there is a whole world of people who care very deeply about you and will provide the care necessary to help you start to put one foot in front of another again. For those of you not yet supporting survivors, I encourage you to join in with us, and let me share a few pieces of compelling research that may change your mind. We know that for every time someone enters a hospital with a gunshot wound, the likelihood that they'll experience an early death due to gun violence increases. In fact, 20% of people who enter a hospital due to a gunshot wound will die within 5 years. Caring for survivors provides an opportunity to prevent future gun violence in our city. According to a study completed in 2021 by the Office of Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods, a homicide with one suspect cost our city $900,000, and an injury-only shooting cost us $500,000. What costs are allocated across crime scenes, hospital bills, criminal justice, victim support, and lost revenue, the largest cost is tied to incarceration, sitting at more than over 50% of the overall cost. So caring for survivors is also an opportunity to cut cost for our city. I looked up the definition of survivor and landed on this one as my favorite. A survivor is someone who continues to live afterward in spite of coming close to death. Look, I don't care why you choose to join us in our work to support survivors. I don't care if it's because of compassion, if it's because you want to prevent future violence, or if it's because of cost savings. I'm just asking you to please join with us. Support the work of the Office of Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods, the various organizations they endorse, or Whitney Strong with your time as a volunteer or with a donation today. Survivors deserve to truly live, and we need you. Thank you. I'm going to pass it over to my friend Keonis Corneal from the Office of Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods.
Thank you, Whitney, for sharing your story. Thank you, Mayor Greenberg, for having me today, and thank you to all the survivors who were courageous enough to stand up here with me today. And thank you to all of you for being here as we collectively recognize the importance of what this week means to us. My name is Keonis Corneal, and I am the Gun Violence Prevention Manager for the Office for Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods. I am a former police officer here in the city of Louisville, and I too am a gun violence survivor. In 2019, a gun was used to murder my younger brother here in Louisville as he worked as security. In 2017, another gun was used to permanently disable another young brother of mine, leaving him in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. I know all too well the long-lasting personal effects of gun violence to individuals, to families, and to our community as a whole. Our job at the Office for Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods, commonly called OSHN, is to identify the root causes of violence, and then to come up with solutions that are long-lasting, that will decrease the risk of individuals becoming future victims of violence. We have a team of dedicated, uniquely experienced outreach workers who are in the streets of our most distressed neighborhoods every day. We talk to a lot of young kids and a lot of young adults who tell us every day that gun violence seems like something they cannot escape. People in our communities have learned to live through gun violence because they do not believe that it's going away. They have learned to live through it and in spite of it. Our job at OSHN is to answer those calls and to let the community know that we hear you. And we are in the communities every single day looking for those most affected by gun violence in their own communities. If you or someone you know is actively involved in violence. What we're asking is that you give us a chance. Give us a chance to assist you in locating services for you and locating the help that you need. We are committed to the work. Our administration is committed to the work. And our communities are committed to the work. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today in recognition of gun violence survivors across our nation. Even more so, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the community of survivors we have here in Louisville. It's not easy being here today with you. However, I felt as though it were my duty to share my survival journey with you, even if it only helps one other person out there today and inspires and motivates them. Just shy of 2 short years ago, on February 8th, 2021, I was viciously attacked and shot 6 times outside of my South Louisville home. While nearly 3 months pregnant, 5 bullets entered into my lower abdomen and pelvis area, while the 6th entered into my upper thigh. I underwent a series of surgeries at the University of Louisville Hospital to save not only my life, but the life of my then unborn son. By the time of my 2nd surgery, doctors were made aware of the bullet and bullet fragments that had entered into my bladder and instructed me to sign a DNC, allowing them to terminate my pregnancy if need be to save my life. Fortunately, the amazing urologist and team of Trauma 1 specialists at the University of Louisville Hospital were able to perform the surgery successfully without termination, which at that time, and even now today, was all I cared about: the life of my unborn, my purpose. Just a few days later, physical therapists were brought in to assess my mobility, and that's when the severity of my injuries really set in, and just how destined my son and I will still be alive today. With the most severe injuries being the damage done to my bladder and femoral nerve, resulting in my temporary paralysis of my left leg and the inability to walk. Having suffered numerous injuries and enduring months of intense physical therapy to regain my ability to walk, I found myself severely depressed while also navigating my way through newly diagnosed PTSD paranoia, leaving me completely isolated from society, like I have found to be the case for many other survivors. And if you are one of those survivors, I encourage you to join a survivor support group, as well as finding a trauma therapist, or maybe you'll feel more like myself and begin to see how you can be involved in supporting legislation for stricter gun laws. For those things have helped me process my trauma tremendously. In fact, that's what's given me my strength to be here with you today. The University of Louisville's Community Health Services and the Office of Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods have supported numerous of gun violence survivors and their families in Louisville. MINT, Motivated Individuals Navigating Trauma, funded by Kiara James and Rayvon Churchill, offers the support and resources needed to survivors who may need someone who can relate to their situation. The Office of Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods also played an essential role in my recovery journey, offering services ranging from financial assistance to counseling and numerous of other helpful resources. And lastly, I'd like to highlight my mentor through this all, the strongest woman and mother I know, for all the work she and her staff have done and accomplished in Congress in both Ohio and in Kentucky, Whitney Austin of Whitney Strong. Before the shooting, I was an active 27-year-old. I instructed ballet. I excelled in my career field as a pastry chef. I enjoyed hikes, concerts, traveling, and a plethora of other activities, all of which came to an abrupt halt after being shot. Having missed those activities in my life, I'm proud to be able to say today I have fought throughout my survival journey to be back to majority of those things. Though my life will never be the same, I feel triumphant about where I am today, considering all I've had to overcome to achieve this feeling. While being wheeled into the ER that night, I thought to myself, this is the end. My life's ending. However, I stand here with you all today, more strong, resilient, and full of life than ever, and knowing my son is healthy, protected, and loved by so many. And for that, I look optimistically towards what my second chance of life has to offer for me and my son, Javian. Thank you.
Thank you, Janae, Q, Whitney, for sharing those powerful, moving, and important stories. I really appreciate that a lot. And to Raven, Dana, Merced, thank you so much for joining us here today as well. We represent just a small fraction of the people across Louisville, across the country, that have been impacted by gun violence. All of us and many others in Louisville are ready to take action. We stand ready to work with every community partner in the city to reduce the amount of gun violence so that no one else has to join the group that those of us here today are a part of. As I mentioned at the beginning, we are going to host our first gun violence prevention community conversation on Tuesday, February 21st at 6 p.m. at the Muhammad Ali Center. We will have facilitated discussions. We will break out into small groups. We will have reports back to the entire group. And hopefully we'll be focusing on specific solutions that the city government, the private sector, our religious community, our nonprofit organizations, that anyone who wants to be a part of the solution to reduce the amount of gun violence can join in and take action with us. The public is invited, and I invite anyone who wants to participate to join us at the Muhammad Ali Center on February 21st at 6 p.m. for our first gun violence prevention community conversation.